Hello, my name is George Flew and I'm the developer of the 3DUtility toolbox. In my previous videos I demonstrated some of the many features of the toolbox, and in this video I will show some of the features of AutoCAD that will leverage our 3D design to make the preparation of our design drawings faster and therefore more cost effective. I want to emphasize that this is a demonstration of the process and not a training video, so I won't explain all of the details as I go along. Okay, let's have a quick review of AutoCAD's 3D development. In AutoCAD version 2.6, released in 1987, 3D Level 2 introduced 3D lines, faces, and plotting. This allowed for the creation of realistic 3D drawings. AutoCAD 2007 added the SectionPlane command that provided the ability to define sections, also called elevations. And finally, with AutoCAD 2010, the essential SectionPlaneTo Block command was introduced. This added the ability to create a flat projection of the section. It is these last two commands, along with the concept of paperspace, that we are going to explore here. Okay, moving to our drawing here, we can see the layout that we completed in the first three videos. Again, I want to point out that I'm using BricsCAD rather than AutoCAD. However, all the commands and tools that I will use here have their direct equivalents in AutoCAD. So the only change here that you see that I've made at this point is I've added a relay house, and I've just that will come into play here in our demo. So let's go back. Okay, so now, once you defined your plan view, the next thing you want to do is determine the sections or elevations, and I'll probably use those terms interchangeably. The elevations that you want to create to demonstrate to the substation packager or the contractor exactly how you want this substation to look. So I have actually come in here and defined some section lines that in nice big letters and lines so you can see them. This is probably what I would call a minimum that you would need. You could probably use some more. So we've got section AA that will be looking into this this bay of the substation. BB will look into this bay. CC looking in the high side. DD looking into this high side bus, and then EE looking back into the low side bus. So let's begin, and we mentioned that the two commands we're going to use, we're going to come up and open a BricsCAD. We're going to open, if we can do it right, there's a toolbar over here, sections. Okay, so we have our section plane and our SectionPlaneTo Block commands. So I'm going to use a menu up here so I don't have to type these. They're long commands. The first thing we want to do is define our section line, or what we might have called a cut line, across here that will then allow us to create that elevation. So let's just pick this. We go down here. You want to make sure you're down far enough that you're not going to overlap into these structures. And you want to be far enough this way that you cover the entire structure. So we'll start here. Unfortunately, the ortho doesn't work on this, so we just have to kind of eyeball something here that's straight out, and we click, and as soon as we do, we notice that half our substation disappears. Well, let me turn the RT on down here. That's caused by the fact that by default this is created as a clip display. So let's unclip it. Let's tell it clip display no, and now we feel better that we haven't lost our substation. Okay, so let's come back here and let's pick this line we just created, and you'll see here it's got some grips on here where you can move it or you can adjust the endpoints, and it's got this arrow, which is to me a little counterintuitive. This arrow is not the direction that you're looking. This arrow is pointing toward where you're standing as you look at it. A little bit confusing, and I think AutoCAD, I don't believe it's quite as confusing, but we'll go ahead with this. So the first thing I want to do here is change the state of this section entity from a plane to a boundary. If we do that as a plane, then we will see everything from here to infinity behind this, and it can get quite confusing. So I'm going to change it to a boundary, and as soon as I do that, then you notice that it puts this rectangular or puts this rectangle on here, and what it's defining here is this is the back plane of this elevation. And again, if we leave it like that, we're going to basically see eternity. So let's come up here and let's click on this arrow. Let's drag this back down. What we want to do, we want to get far enough down. We don't want to get so far that we don't see this column structure over here, or look funny that everything here will just be hanging in space. So we need to have that column structure. So we'll just come down to here, and that will then get everything you see inside this box will be displayed in our elevation. So we defined our section plane. Now we want to go to the section plane to block, and this will take this section plane and convert it into an elevation view of our substation here. I need to make a couple of changes in here, which I need to go into section. Here we want to break into your video to make a special announcement. Oops, I opened that form in a screen that you can't see, so I am inserting this so we can show you. So let's go down here, and we're going to type in again the section plane settings command, and it will open. There's the form is on the right page. I made several changes. This came up as some kind of automatic generated name, and I changed it to elevation AA, and then I came over here under these features, and again, I don't want to get into all the details of what's going on, but just to bring you up to date, I changed hidden lines to no, since we don't want to see the hidden lines. And if you don't change these two items to white, you'll have a number of red lines on the drawing that just really kind of confuse things, and that's not what we want to see. So okay, so I've made those changes, and with that, I'll return you to your original video. Thank you. All right, so I'm ready at this point then to create my elevation. Let's go in here and create a layer to put that on. Let's don't put it on the elevations layer. I've got that turned off right now. So let's create a new one. Let's just call it elevations 1. Elevations 1, and let's make it white before it comes up and looks funny. And then we're going to set that as our current layer. Okay, now I'm going to create this elevation. We need to come over here. Excuse me, I just got lost in thought a minute. We come over here to the section plane to block, and it comes up. We've got a couple of options here, several options we need to look at. When we initially do this, we need to insert a new block, and we probably want to specify on the screen where to put it. Otherwise, they'll just pile up on top of each other. But we want to leave their X, Y, Z scale into 1, and of course leave the angle to 0. If we have already created the block and we've made changes to our drawings and we want to update it, then we need to replace existing block, and then we would click select and go over here to the screen and select the block. Source geometry, include all entities. I've never had a reason to do anything else. And then we need to select the plane itself. Even though it says section plane selected, the fact that I don't see it selected always bothers me, so I just want to make sure that we're on the same page, so I'll be sure and select that. Now when I hit OK, this will take probably a minute or more to generate the section plane, so I'm probably going to do a little fast forward on you, and so when we get back, we'll pick up here with the section plane created, or excuse me, the elevation created. Okay, we're back. Okay, so now it has created this block, and it's sitting there wanting to know where to place it. So I'm going to go up here and make sure it's kind of out of the way, and we're going to place it there. And now let's just zoom in a little bit, and you can see this is that elevation going from our riser on the low side, our 12 kV structure, back up through our transformer, our 161 bus, circuit switcher, our breaker, and then here's our incoming line. So, and then if we zoom in, let me try to zoom in without doing that. We zoom in, you can see that the line, we have hidden the line behind our holophane light there, so we've got our hidden lines off. So now with that, let me just go ahead and reveal everything else I've done prior to coming back here. I've got I've made sections for all of these different sections that we're looking at. Let me just take a quick minute here to go over here and change this to the sections layer. So we've got them all on the same layer. I've also have an elevations layer that I have frozen so that we can zoom and pan around. Let me go ahead and it's also off. So here you can see the other all of these sections I've made. Let me just go ahead and grab this one now and kind of pull it back into Tennessee, as we'd say. I'm just going to drag it back down here where it's kind of it's back in the ballpark with the rest of us. And now we can do a zoom all. Excuse me, that was had an elevation. All right, so you can see here that then through the magic of the section plane and the section plane to block, we have generated a block drawing of all of these elevations. Not very complicated. It works out. Obviously, works very good. Now, if you come in here and you make any changes in your plan view, if you move anything around, add any structures, anything you do, then at that point you would want to come back in, and with your section plane to block, you would want to come back in here and instead of insert new block, tell it to replace block, and you still have to select it. I don't understand why they haven't associated the planes and the blocks together so that you either select the block or select the plane, and it would then associate the two of them. But you would have to then come out and reselect the block, reselect the plane that goes with it, so you better kind of remember what the association is here. So, and then you would say okay, and it would basically just regenerate it. But it would the important thing is it regenerates it in the same location. And I really want to caution you, do not explode these blocks and then make modifications anywhere in these blocks. They just need, any modifications need to be made in your 3D model, and these are regenerated. And I'm going to give you show you a good reason why. So where do we go from here? So we've done a little hocus pocus, and we've got these nice elevations. Now where do we go? Okay, I don't know if you're familiar with the term paperspace or the concept. We're going to go over here and create, you can see I've got several paperspace layouts made. I'm going to create a new one here. Give it a second. It's going to come up here and say name, and I'm going to tell it this is elevation AA. Say OK, and what it has done is it's created a default paperspace. So the white area does represent your paper. Is put a viewport, and this viewport is a view into your model space, which is the model space. We may not have mentioned that or called it that, but that's what we've been working in all this time, is model space. Now we're working in paperspace. This was a concept that AutoCAD introduced with several releases back, probably like release 9 or maybe even earlier. So what we've got is a viewport here into our model space. Okay, so I'm going to modify this. I'm I'm going to go up here to the page setup, and I'm going to change the printer to a PDF printer, and I'm going to change the size. Now, you can, if you've got a large format plotter, go back to none, you will probably see sizes like this: architectural, engineering, or ANSI sizes, ISO sizes, every size under the sun. But I'm going to create this as a PDF file, and on 11 by 17. Now, you may think that's probably ridiculous, but I've actually designed several substations where we have only sent out for bid purposes 11 by 17 packets. In fact, the last few times we did one, we actually only sent out the PDF, and then we left it up to if any of the bidders wanted a full size plot, we would charge them for it, and because it takes a good bit of time to plot them, trim them, staple them. They're not cheap to mail. These 11 by 17s, you can print them out on your big Xerox machine, or better yet, send them the PDF. And if your Xerox machine is good enough, it might even staple them. So anyway. So here I've got 11 by 17. Here's the default viewport it's created. First thing I'm going to do to this is I'm going to insert a title block, and it just happens to be sitting there waiting to insert the title. It's a horizontal B-size title block, and I insert it, and it automatically goes to 0, 0, and it's scaled. It's going up here and asking me the name of the utility, and I'm just going to take the default of the 3DUtility in the default location of Knoxville, Tennessee. Now, all of these items in here are actually attributes of this block, and we will probably fill a few of those out later. So what we want to do then now is put our elevation AA on this drawing. And so I'm going to select this viewport. Now we can move this around, do anything we want to with it. This is just a view into the, let me make sure I turn my snaps off, or I'll find myself snapping this thing and turn off the ortho. I want to put it up just a little bit above center, and I'm going to make it long and skinny. You'll see why here when I get through. And so I'm going to drag this other corner over here and put it, say, about there. Alright, so now there's our view. Now if we double snap inside the viewport, it puts us into the model space that's in the view. And what I want to do is just drag our view, and we're just dragging the view. We're not making any changes to the model space when we do this. It's just like panning in the model space. Now, but don't get me wrong, if I make any changes here, these changes will be reflected in the model space. So I don't really want to change anything here. I just want to get this in our viewport. Now I'm going to step back outside the viewport. I'm going to click on the viewport itself and go over here to the attributes. And what we're looking to do is to figure a scale that will scale this up in our paper view to be something acceptable. So if you go down here, you see standard scale. Out of all these items, we'll go down here and pick standard scale. And you know, everybody likes to make a nice 1:50 drawing. Well, obviously that isn't going to work. So, well, we can live with an 1:100. Well, that's not going to work either. Let's go back in here and just look. We're going to, oops, we got to get back inside the viewport. And you can see here when we keep panning over that we just can't fit it in this on this piece of paper at 1:50. So we're going to have to. We don't want to use at 1:100. Well, you know, we certainly don't want to go into 1:150 and crazy scales that we can't even find a scale to use. But what we are going to do, and I know from experience what we need to do here. So we're going to go down into the architectural scale. So you'll probably have to put that in the next budget to buy an architectural scale. And again, from experience, 3/32 equals a foot. Will, for most of these substations, will fit just fine. And so now we've got our substation, and it's in there. It's at a scale. So if you once we plot this out, if you put a 3/32 scale on there, you will make accurate measurements. So let's now click outside of our viewport. I want to do one other thing I need to do here. Let me select that again. I want to move the viewport itself to, I've got a viewport layer, and which is dark blue, so I know that it helps me know that it's on the right layer. Later, when we get ready to plot, we will turn this scale. We'll turn this layer off so that this box doesn't plot. But for now, we'll leave it on. So the next thing we want to do here is dimension this. So without getting into the dimension styles and such, I've got a dimension style set up that works fine for this. Before we do this, let's check our O-snap. And at this point, we want our O-snap to be to the midpoint, and you'll see why when I get into this. So the midpoint. So midpoint. Thank you. Let me turn this off. Get out of the way. So okay, we're going to start our dim horizontal, and we'll go in here, and let me turn snap on, and you'll see that what we're looking for is the midpoint of these footers. So we're going to pick the midpoint here. We're going to come down here and tell it where we want to put this. Don't worry about the blue line, it'll go away. You got to be a little careful. If I don't turn the snap off here, this thing will find a snap somewhere, and it won't be where I put it. Now once I've done that, turn snap back on. Now I have to tell it dim continue, and so I can come over here and just hit these snap points, hit close to them. It's a little slow finding the snap points. Now we have a problem here. I don't want to dimension to these footers. I want to just dimension to the center of this structure. And oops, I did it. It's 13 feet, so I got lucky. If I hadn't, I would have just dropped it somewhere close, come back later and drawn a line across here, and then moved it to the midpoint. I'll probably demo that anyway. Make sure you get the right one here. This is easy to fix. Now these, while I'm doing this, just mention these are associative dimensions. So that means if I do happen to go in here and move some of this around, these dimensions should auto-correct themselves. We're good there. Now let me just, if I had just kind of plopped this down somewhere, what I'd have done is come back here and just align command and go from the end of this one to the end of this one, and then I would have done a crossing select. If you want to be sure you select the line associated with both of these, go up here and grab it, and then you would just come back up here and snap it to the mid, and you'd be fine. And then do a erase last, get rid of the line. Now, want to do one other thing. We want to do a dim horizontal again, because you always want to show a nice overall dimension. Down here somewhere, just right down here below this, and there you get your overall dimension from end to end. You'll notice I've set my dimension style to have these not show inches where their feet are, and I get into a couple of problems. I mean, if you go back and change it where it shows 5 foot 0 inches, then you don't have room inside this one for your arrow lines and arrowhead, and it can be even worse on some of the others that we'll look at later. Now we need to come in here, and we certainly want to dimension vertical. We need to put a few minimum dimensions on here at least. I'm on the fly. Change my OS mode from 2 to 3. Let's change it to 3. That will give us endpoints. So because I want a dimension from the top of this footer. The top of this footer ought to be somewhere above ground, maybe by 1 inch or 2 inches. But if we give them the dimension of that footer, then we know that it'll be above ground, somewhere up here on the structure. And so here we have one. So we're 18 foot 1 inch. That's the little vagaries of the structure sizes and the bus sizes that we use. That it winds up kind of an odd one. But the main thing you want to, and you notice I went to the bottom of the bus. The main thing when I do a design, I want to make sure that I know that I've got ground clearance. So I go to the bottom of the bus. If you want to go to the middle of the bus, that's fine. If you want to come back here and modify that and call that min, and then let the substation designer make it whatever he wants to make it, that's fine too. So no problem with that. You just need to give them a dimension somewhere here that you are happy with, that you can that meets your requirements. So let's just throw one in here on this holophane light. And so I'm going to do it from here, and I'm going to go to the end. There won't be an insert point on that. This may be a little bit hard to get, but let's go to the mid. Let's zoom in and get this is that base, and then we'll come out here and that probably ought to actually just be 9 foot. There's that funny little inch that comes in there again. So this will tell it how far you want this bus off the ground. You can dimension up to this bus if you want to, but the truth is there's a minimum clearance between here and here that the designer will have to cover, and you will probably show that some dimension on one of the other elevations to that bus that's going across the middle of the substation. So I'm not going to worry with that at this point. I'm going to go in here and add one more. Well, I may add 2 more. I'm going to add the M vertical. We're going to go from this corner up here to this bus, and oddly enough it's 18 foot 2 inches off the ground, but that's just where these structures came out when we did the structures. Let's do the same thing. Let's do DM vertical. We'll go from here to what we're going to do is go to the end of this bus, and we're going to show how high we want this bus right here to be off the ground. Now, if you want to play with these structure heights and make these things, even feet, that's fine. That's the only thing that you really need to do any kind of modifications to of these structure heights. Okay, there's probably one other thing you would want to do on this elevation, and that would be to show your conductor sizes. I've actually got a little app I wrote, label bus, and it basically goes up and looks at all of your X bus layers and makes a list of them down here. So we want to label this section here, so it wants the description number. In that case, we're looking at this 4-inch IPS aluminum is number 7. So I put in 7. It says to select the bus. We'll go up here and pick a point on the bus, pick another point on the bus to line it up, and then tell it which side we want it on. And so we can label that. And so let's just label a couple of these others. This is 500 going in here, so that's number 10. And so I got that wrong. Let me do that again. 500 copper is number 9. I'm sorry, I was going to call it the wrong thing. And so we come in here and we align it, and we tell it we want on this side. We may want to come back later and just grab these and move them around a bit our liking. So let's, LB is an abbreviation on, this is a 2.5 inch bus, and this is in alphabetical order by bus, so you got 1.5, 1,000, 2.5, 2 alt copper, 3, 4, etc. So when you're looking for this, 2.5 inch bus is a 3. I'm going to come in here and put this in here, line it up here, 2.5 IPS. So you would want to go in here and give some information on this. Let's just do one more, just so that we can cover ourselves on all these. Now we're going to put this one in, and this is 1,000 copper, so that's number 2, not number 20. It's number 2. And again, we're going here and pick a couple of lines. Let's put it on this side this time. There's our 1,000 copper. So we need to label all of these. You know, this is a 1 inch. Let's just put that in right quick. It's an inch. It's an 1.5 IPS apparently. Now I thought it was 1 inch, but I don't see that on here, so it must not be. So again, we will just zoom in here a little bit. We will label that here, and we'll clean that up a little bit. Just drag it down here. So that, you know, you may want to dimension something like possibly you want to dimension the spacing on these switches. I think I got too many snaps on right now. I think one of my programs turned a bunch of snaps on. That's 9 foot spacing, and then you need to dim continue. You'd think there'd be an easier way of doing that. And I clicked too fast, so let's cancel that out, and we'll just grab this. Oh no, I did hit right. So perhaps that is I would probably, it's kind of hard to dimension these buses, but you could put a dimension on one of them and mark it as typical, and they should know then that all of those buses have the same dimension between them. This bus is, for some reason, set off a little bit on this side, so you may need to give a dimension from the center line on both of these so they can see how they sit there. Because if you make them guess, they'll throw a scale on it and come up with their best guess. If that doesn't bother you, then fine. Otherwise, you know, have at it. So I would say this is almost what I would call almost completed. We'll go up here and we will come down here, and we'll add in here that this is our new substation, and these are the attributes of this title block, so you can fill in anything on here. This is our 161 to 12 kV 18 24 30 MVA, and this would be, let's make it all caps, elevation AA. Okay, and that's, well, that's not quite complete. 3/32 inch equals 1 foot, and so now we've got as much. I mean, you know, we don't have drawn by, etc., but that all needs to be filled in. Work order number, sheet number, all that needs to be done. But you can see there, in, I don't know what it's taken us to create this drawing, 30-45 minutes, that you can quite quickly, you know, create these individual elevations. Let's just, for the heck of it, go up here and turn off our viewport, just so we can see this better. And you can see that we have a nice elevation drawing. And if you look down here, you can see that I've got a number of other drawings that I've made that should comprise almost a complete set of drawings for bidding purposes. So let's just look at those. I'm going to first go ahead and move our elevation AA down here in the correct order. I've got an overview that I created. This doesn't do anything, but really just conveys to the contractor what this looks like, and you know, if he has any questions, he might be able to actually review this and see you know, see what was really intended. Let me just point out here, if we go in here and we go into the paper space, I mean, excuse me, back into the viewport, we just select one of these this view. If we go in and look at it, we'll see, well, this looks kind of funny because it's on the 45 degree. Besides, we got more space sideways. So let's just take this and orbit it around a little bit where that makes more sense. We'll zoom out. If we do a zoom extents, it doesn't quite get it. Let's zoom 1.1x. Just make it a little bit bigger. Let's do it one more time. 1.1x, and then we'll come up here and drag it back into everything's in the port. Click outside, turn off our viewport. Now we've got a nice overview. I've got a plan drawing, which is strictly a plan view of the station, and of course what we've done is we've come in with our in our layers, and you can see here we've got a number of frozen layers in this viewport. You'll see that on all these drawings in elevation AA. Then we got elevation BB. These are all in not quite complete state, but they're you know, there's at least, most of them are at least 60%. CC, DD. Here we are looking into our low side in our low side bus, and you can see here where I've just dimensioned this typical rather than dimensioning it all the way across. We've got our vertical clearance up here to our bottom of our bus again, and then we go in. We've got a foundation plan, and once again you go in here and see we've turned off. We have to go into the we go into the viewport. You notice here we have frozen all of these layers that have anything to do with the 3D, except for the footings that we have on here. We've frozen all of our sections, and so that's how you arrive at these. I've started doing some dimensioning, but again, that's just kind of representative. I've got a little structure showing in up here. I'm not too sure how I got. Oh, that's part of our. I need to freeze, do a freeze on these two elevation layers, and now it's gone. So there's a foundation plan, a grounding plan. Okay, this I've not done any design on this. I just kind of eyeballed some loops of copper ground. They need pigtails going to the structures, etc. And then a conduit plan coming out of our relay house, conduits, and again, someone has to do a relay design. Any number of things need to be done before this conduit plan can be completed. But you can see here that if you show each one of these individually, all of this could easily be included in your bill of material, because it actually shows up in the model space. So with that, we can just kind of sum this up and say, you know, I've spent a couple of days in putting this together in order to do the demo. There's still several days of work, obviously, to finish it and get it all done complete. But you can see how you can leverage your 3D design. Now, Again, I just want to point out that you know, if you have any questions or comments, you can go to the3DUtility.com. Go up to the top, look for the menu on the right side. You'll see contacts, and you can send me a. You can go to that page and send me any questions, comments. Be sure to include your email address if you want to reply. And I'm sure this is showing down here somewhere. But with that, we'll call it it for this this video, and you might check back. I have a few others in mind that I may try to do here in the near future. So thank you.